Sheila, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say, first of all, that my father fought in the First World War. He was in the Air Force. He always had a limp because he got hurt, but he was alive and I'm here, which is wonderful. Then in the Second World War, he did fire duty, morning, noon and night. We hardly saw him. Then all of this has started. I'm 83, and I can remember running down to the shelter when the air raids went, and I can remember the sound.
Must have been very scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on the air raids that go off in Israel because they're constantly bombing, it all comes back to you. But what I want to say is, Saturday, my grandchildren and my daughter went to synagogue in the morning as usual.
You're Jewish?
Yes, I'm Jewish, sorry, I should have said.
That's all right.
Yes. And very proud of it too, sorry.
You should be. You should be.
And I decided I wasn't going in to pray. I was going to sit opposite in a coffee shop and watch what was going on, because I was worried for their safety.
Yeah.
Two lovely grandchildren. There was security there. Normally, you get a policeman coming every so often, walks by, gets out of the car, is everything all right, and goes away again, which is wonderful. But the synagogue security were there, 4, 5, 6, 2 security guards that are paid for that are wonderful as well and friendly and terrific.
But I mean, I'm sure they're great people, but what a shame that they have to be there outside your synagogue.
Absolutely. Well, that's been going on for a long time, unfortunately. Yeah. We've got used to it. But the thing that I really want to say, suddenly these 2 young men came along and one of them put a Palestinian flag on front and back and stood in front of the synagogue. Now, the security started walking towards them. I was absolutely furious. I got up and I shot over. And of course, when they saw me, a grey-haired old lady of 83, they began to get worried. They must have thought, if anybody takes a photo...
I wouldn't mess with you, Sheila. I would not mess with you. So what happened?
Well, they just went. They saw a bus and got on it. But, you see, what really gets me is that I feel like this, because this is a wonderful country to live in. I've lived in it, I've been educated in it, I've worked in it, I've paid tax in it, and I've been happy here. Lovely neighbours, lovely people, all different religions. Why now do these people have to come to our country, this wonderful country, Great Britain, and do this?
Sheila, I think you make a very good point in that, as I've often said, I'm for peaceful protest, but I believe that people should have their freedoms, but maybe don't unfurl a Palestinian flag outside a synagogue. That's not okay. And of course the security guards were there, but even better than that, Sheila was there, and that's why those guys scarpered off, and rightly so. Let's go to David in Essex now, and he is going to give us his opinion and also talk to our panel. I'm delighted that Matthew Laza is here, former Labour advisor. Hello, Matthew.
With you.
And Reem Abraham, who is communications officer at the Institute for Economic Affairs. Great to have you in the studio. Good morning. David, who is in Essex. Hello there. Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
What would you like to say, David?
I'd like to say that I was at the gathering yesterday at Trafalgar Square purely and simply as an independent observer, just to get a sense of I've been deeply affected by the things I've been seeing on the TV with children and the bombings and the wars going on. And I'd just like to say this, if you'd give me a fair hearing at this.
Go for it, David. Go for it.
It is complex. I think we're missing the point. It's not such... We're in a spiritual crisis in this country where we've allowed a very few minority to dictate to a large majority what is normal, what is acceptable, what our values should be. I was there and I saw nothing but people embracing each other, hugging each other, normal people, mums, dads, rosy-red children, posh accents with, carrying flags.
So the majority of what you saw, David, was properly peaceful, people just on a protest, people very happily making their point.
I saw there was a lot of energy, there was a lot of fervour, but underlining it all, there was a lot of love, a lot of people embracing each other, coming together, and I think we're spiritually lost in this country. I saw Orthodox Jewish people standing, saying, "Not in our name," but the one thing I didn't see a Christian representation demanding that this atrocity stopped. And the point I'm trying to make is that our church, the Church of England, has become so corrupted. We've become so secularized that we're prepared to accept any abomination. And we've lost our spiritual guidance in this country.
Some people who've clearly lost their spiritual guidance, David, are people who were throwing fireworks at the police in Trafalgar Square. You may not have witnessed that, but it nonetheless happened. This has the propensity. I'm sure there are many people, very dignified, very peaceful protesters there yesterday. I'm sure not all 30,000 people were in any way violent, but this did get out of control at points.
But this is a symptom. It's a symptom of what's going wrong. I mean, I'm 70 years old, and I've seen the moral decline of this country year upon year upon year until... I mean, if you say anything about anything, you're some kind of homophobic or Islamophobic. Or
I don't think you're homophobic. I don't think you're Islamophobic. You haven't said any of those things. You've made some points in a very, very dignified and straightforward way, David. So I want you to continue to use your voice. I want you to continue to ring in and let us know your thoughts on things, and thank you for them. Richard is in Wakefield. Richard, what's the point you want to make today?
Just a couple, Peter, and thanks very much for the introduction to your programme. I think you summarised where we're at superbly.
Thank you, Richard.
A couple of points I'd raise. I hear the phrase broken Britain. I actually don't think Britain exists anymore. We seem to have lost our real identity.
That's a very good question, Richard. What does it mean to be British? I mean, I have a clear idea what that is, but I'm not sure everybody does in this country.
Well, I think we've lost two things are the problem. Essentially, we've got terrible politics. And this is not a racial comment, although somebody will say it is. We've got Keir Starmer who's got himself in a loop because he might lose the votes of 5 million Muslims. What about the rest of us? I mean, this is not anti-Muslim.
No, but I think it's fair to say, Richard, that not all 5 million Muslims vote Labour. They don't all vote this. Not every single Muslim person in this country votes Labour.
No, I would agree with that, but Mr. Starmer can't seem to get his head around that one. But I think overall, Peter, we've become too polite. Where's the spine of our country? Where is the majority who keep silent?
Let's talk to Adam in Birmingham. He's giving me a call on 0344 499 1000. Adam, you're very welcome to the programme this morning. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. Yes, I just wanted to say, if one child is blown apart with a bomb at the middle of London, there will be an absolute uproar. The national mind has been conditioned in such details that 3,500 babies have been blown up and killed, and everybody says, "Oh well."
No, I don't say oh well. I think that's a horrible, awful thing. I don't want any children to die anywhere in the Middle East. I don't want anybody in Gaza who's an innocent civilian to die. We need to remember this. We need to focus on this, definitely.
Exactly, and that brings my point in here. The Remembrance Day, as important as it is, and it is very important, and I've been attending it every year as a military person myself, is remembering the dead. These 3,500 and all the civilians are dead as well. Let's utilize this day to remember all dead in the war, especially 3,500 babies. And unfortunately, we are living in a country where the Prime Minister and the Home Office Minister are Hindus, and Hindus have been brought up from birth to hate Muslims.
I don't think that's true. I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can say that, Adam. Well, you can't say it, but I don't think it's right.
Yeah, that's the feeling. The feeling which is coming across in here. So
that is not my experience of any Hindu I've ever met.
Yeah, So basically, I just wanted to make sure that people hear that we should remember 3,500 babies being blown up.
Well, I think we need to remember all the dead civilians on both the Israeli and the Gazan side.
Exactly. And let's not delay this march. Let's pass this message on, because if you move it to next week, there will be another 1,000 babies added to it.
So you think the march should go ahead?
The march must go ahead. People should have a freedom of bringing up peacefully, bringing their views across, especially at this time.
But the problem is some of them are not doing it peacefully, and some of them are doing it in a very offensive way, Adam.
Those are the idiots. Those are the idiots. We should not just utilize the memory of the idiots. The same as Hamas. Hamas people are idiots. You shouldn't kill the Palestinian civilians because of that. And as one of your callers says, Hamas is an ideology. You kill civilians, you're going to move more people toward that ideology rather than help the cause for Israel. Let's give these people some freedom. Let's talk to these people. Let's give them some hope for the future, so that they don't have to resort to these idiocies. If you treat people for 75 years like dogs, unfortunately, you have to expect some of them to act like dogs.
It's not justified, though, is it?
It is not justified. Of course not. It's not justified from either side. The Hamas people are idiots. They're animals.
You say it's not justified from either side. Do you not think Israel has a right to defend itself?
They have got the right to defend themselves against the right people, not against babies and civilians.
OK. Adam, thanks for your thoughts there, Adam in Birmingham. Anne is in Hertfordshire, has given me a call on 0344 499 1000. Anne, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to talk about the COVID inquiry.
OK.
And I think it should be stopped straight away, because I think it's a massive insult to everyone who died.
Why do you think it's an insult to look into what happened?
Because they're just backbiting, calling each other names. What Cummings has said is disgraceful.
I agree with all of that, Anne, but...
It costs the taxpayers a fortune.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Anne, and I agree with everything you've just said there in terms of Dominic Cummings and so on,
but... They didn't have a 2-minute silence before it started. They didn't recognise anyone who died, and they didn't say they feel for the families. They didn't say anything like that. They just went straight into accusing each other of all these ridiculous things. It's just... a waste of taxpayers' money.
But won't
Heather... If I was in charge of the MPs, I'd sack a lot of them.
But won't Heather Hallett, who is the Baroness Hallett, won't she decode all that? Won't she take all the evidence, get through it, sort of process that, and actually get rid of the nonsense and actually get to the truth of this? Is that not what's going to happen?
Hurry up about it.
Yeah.
The longer it's taking, it's more money it's costing us. And I hope they're not being paid to give evidence. I think that would be an absolute insult.
No, they won't be paid to give evidence. No, that won't happen. They'll be called.
I think it's disgraceful the way it's being run. It's a farce.
OK, Anne, thanks very much for your thoughts there. Anne in Hertfordshire, thank you very much indeed. Michelle is in London. Michelle's giving me a call, 0344 499 1000. Michelle, what would you like to say?
Good morning, Peter.
Morning. Hiya.
Absolute great show. I am very annoyed and frustrated. Why are we begging to have one day?
For remembrance services?
Yeah.
Well, we're not begging. We are having it. We have it every year. But I think they should leave. I think they should leave the veterans and those who want to remember alone for one weekend, don't you?
But we've given the people who are protesting, we've given them... They haven't had to fight for their freedoms. We've won 2 world wars. And we're not going to hand our country over to this, I think it's... I can't even find the word politely. I think it is really, disrespectful. It's like putting 2 fingers up at us for one day. One day.
Yeah. They should just wait till the following weekend. If they want to have... My view is, I don't want their march. I don't agree with their march. I would not take part in their march. But if they want to have it, they should just leave it a week.
But, Peter, if you're going to, start being tit for tat, then we should ban all marches. OK, all right. Michelle, thanks very much indeed for your thoughts on 1000. Bob is in Malmesbury in Wiltshire. Bob, you're very welcome to the programme this afternoon. What would you like to say?
Well, hi. Yes, I really want to speak on behalf of the Palestinian people, who I lump as people who live in that area which was called Palestine. Not the Hamas, whose behaviour has been horrific. And I'd largely like to lump them as Arabs, if you like. but not Islam either, because they're misogynist, as your previous caller was talking at length about. So it's the question, and of course the people in the Bible were Arabs. I mean, Jesus was an Arab, even though they seem to depict him as imported from Scandinavia. The Israelis tend to be ethnically not Arab, even though they sort of pretend that's where they come from. But what I wanted to say on top of that was, in support of the Palestinians, what would we have done if our country, the UK, had been invaded, like the Germans won the war, and we then had to put up with it and perhaps be put in an enclave like Derbyshire or the West Midlands, heaven forbid, and forced to live in those areas, and the Germans and their occupiers lived in the rest of the UK.
But there are lots of Palestinians who live in Israel, Bob.
Well, would we have ever stopped fighting, is really my point I'm trying to make. I mean, we're a stubborn bunch. And would we have ever stopped fighting the occupiers? And that's fundamentally what...
Israel aren't occupiers in Israel. Israel has a democratic right to exist and is a democracy in the Middle East. There are disputed territories, that's absolutely correct, but they withdrew from Gaza in 2005.
Yeah, sure. But originally they were given to Israel in some 1920s declaration that they had the right to live there. But
don't they?
I don't want to get
don't
into
they have
that.
the right? Don't they have? Does Israel not have a right to exist?
Well, yes, but I would like to differentiate the difference between being anti-Semitic and being anti-Israel.
Oh no, of course there are two different things, and that, you know, I've sat here in this exact seat and criticised Benjamin Netanyahu previously in actions of the Israeli government. I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. How do we get out of this? What's next, Bob?
Well,
how do we stop the violence and stop innocent people being killed?
I think they have to have two-state solution. That's the only answer.
But how do we get there? It's the process, Bob, isn't it? It's just it's exasperating, because if you have terrorists who are bombing Israel, if you have Israel in a state of war, they're not going to talk to one another. But also, how do you begin to have a conversation with Hamas that wants to kill everybody?
Okay, Hamas are horrific. I don't condone them in the very slightest. But when you're driven into a corner, what else can they do?
Well, I don't think, even if you're driven into a corner, you don't have to do what Hamas did. I know you're not justifying their actions for a second, Bob. I'm not saying for a second you're doing that, but I think forgive me if I'm characterising you incorrectly, but I think your broader point is that the Palestinian people overall, in your view, and tell me if I'm wrong, have some sort of right to resist Israel in some way, even if it's by peaceful means.
Well, yeah. If Israel had been pushing their settlements into what was given to them, the Palestinian people, the West Bank, and now refusing to withdraw, and then sending the army in to protect the settlements, which shouldn't have been there in the first place. I mean, that's really the nub of the problem. But
I don't think they're going to go back to the 1967 borders anytime soon.
Well, that might be the only solution in the long term. But really, would we have ever stopped fighting the Germans if they'd invaded Britain?
Well, I think they're two slightly different issues, Bob. But thank you for your point, nonetheless. It's Bob and Malmesbury in Wiltshire. Thank you for that. Tony is in Derby. Derby, what do you? Derby? No, Derby's not your name. Derby is the shire. Are you in the city or the shire, Tony? Tony in Derby, are you there?
No, it's only in Cardiff, Pete.
In Cardiff? Oh, it says Derby on my screen. Gosh, sorry about that. You're in Cardiff. Okay, well, that's great. What do you think of this protest, this march next week? What do you think?
Well, I served in Northern Ireland. I unfortunately saw my mate blown to smithereens in Crossmaglen. I was on the same patrol. I got blown over the hedge.
So sorry to hear that.
No, it's 50 years ago this month.
Is it really? 50 years ago? My goodness. 1973, yeah. Goodness me.
Now, I find it very offensive that these people are considering a march on Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
In Cardiff, I find it offensive that Drakeford turns up at the cenotaph. So, you know, these people should, if they want to march, let them march, but not on Remembrance Day.
I think they could leave it a week, don't you, Tony?
Yeah, a lot of our guys, we feel very strongly. Obviously, we don't like to remember our mates, and obviously past people in the First World War.
It's a very special day for you, Tony, isn't it? To remember people like your friend. What was your friend called? What was his name?
David Roberts. He was a 200 soldier to be killed in Northern Ireland.
Well, I will be thinking about him next weekend, because people like you, Tony, who served in Northern Ireland, you kept us safe, and you allowed the peace process to happen. And I grew up, the Belfast Agreement was signed when I was 13 years old, and I grew up in peace because we were protected by the army and we were protected by the police, and you paved the way for the peace process to happen. So I will be thinking about David Roberts next weekend. I know you will as well, Tony, and I just want to say that thank you.
I know it's a different situation, but in 72 I met a lovely old lady in a markets area of Belfast, a Catholic lady, who actually sent my mother a silver crucifix.
Goodness me.
So I have no problem with the people of Ireland.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, you were there to try to keep the peace.
Yeah, I have a massive problem with Hamas.
Yeah.
Because these marches are being financed by somebody, and who's financing them?
There are Iranian agents involved, there's no doubt about that. There is financing from abroad, there's no doubt about that. There are people who are on these marches and are there legitimately and are there making a point that they want to in terms of peace and so on, Tony, there's no doubt about that. But there are sinister elements as well. Make his point. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi. I just want to pick on a couple of things, Peter. What you said about it being disputed territories isn't true. It's the West Bank and East Jerusalem are illegally occupied territories under international law. They're Palestinian territories.
Okay, well, the Israelis would dispute that, therefore they are disputed.
Yeah, I don't care what Israel says.
Okay, well, you may not care what Israel says, but they are disputed. Yeah. There is a dispute.
Well, but what are we going to go by, international law or what Israel says?
I'm not arguing that point. What I'm saying is there is a dispute, therefore there are disputed territories. Anyway, make your next point, Chris.
Yeah, and well, I think the protest should be on a Saturday rather than Sunday because it's disrespectful. But when you said, "Oh, can't they just wait a week?" Like, how many hundreds of children are going to die in a week?
I mean, far too many is the answer, but is a protest going to make a difference?
Well, I don't know, but what else can people do? They feel frustrated watching what's happening, peaceful protests. And,
it's not always peaceful protest, though, Chris, is it? There are people shouting jihad. There are people saying that Hamas are not terrorists. They're a proscribed organisation, and that is illegal.
You can say what you want. We live in a free country.
Well, no, you can't. No, you can't say what you want, because okay. if you're supporting Hamas, which is a proscribed organisation, and you're calling for jihad, that is illegal.
Well, I think that's disputed, whether that's illegal
It's not disputed. People have been convicted of it. If you are, we say we basically have free speech in this country, but if you defame someone, if you libel someone, if you incite violence, and if you support a proscribed terrorist organisation and make that clear in what you're saying, that's illegal.
Prescribed by who?
Prescribed by the UK government. Hamas is a prescribed. Do you not believe Hamas is a terrorist organisation?
Yeah, I'd say so. Israel's a terrorist state as well. But look, when I went on anti-lockdown protests and I went on pro-Brexit protest, we got a lot of idiots in the crowd. Yep. And the news would focus on them. Whereas like 95, 99% were just normal people going about their business and peaceful. But you always get idiots in the crowd. Doesn't mean that represents a whole...
No, and I have been making that point throughout the day. Chris, thanks for your contribution. Really appreciate that. And good for you for going on those protests, by the way, peacefully, I'm sure. Carol is on the line as well, 0344 499 1000. Carol, what point would you like to make?
I'd like to make a point that I don't think anyone else has made, although I did hear one of your callers say that this is not our war. Well, I fundamentally disagree with that.
Why is that, Carol?
I think it is our war. Mm-hmm. In the sense that, one, obviously, Israel is a democratic country and is surrounded by undemocratic countries, but it's not that. Hamas has on their agenda is not just to eradicate the Jews from Israel. Mm. It is to eradicate the Jews worldwide.
Yes, indeed. And we should stand with a democracy, I think, Carol.
That's right. And not only is it to eradicate the Jews worldwide, it is also then to come after the Christians and the infidels.
Absolutely, and that's the point that was made earlier in that little video, that the petition one, yeah.
So they are fighting our war, because if you don't nip these things in the bud, and you hearing some of the preachers during the protests, preaching the way that they have preached. If we do not nip this in the bud, and I don't think our police or our government has the spine to do it, if we don't, we will pay a price.
Very, very good point, Carol, and a scary one as well. No doubt this debate will continue. Johnny, good morning to you. What would you like to say?
Good morning. It's just in relation to these Palestinian rallies.
Yes.
As you know, as you've been talking about, they're being held all over the place, and being from Belfast, you can understand the connotations these marches have here.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of, just for people who may not know, Johnny, you know and I know, but for people who may not know, there has historically been a lot of links between republicanism in Northern Ireland and the Palestinian cause. Certainly the PLO, for example, supplying arms to the IRA. There's all those kind of links previously. So, Johnny, just give me your perspective on that part of the United Kingdom.
Well, for us here, well, obviously, like I'll admit, I'm from the Protestant community. I would consider myself a unionist and a proud British citizen. What I'm seeing today, you know, if I take it from the Good Friday Agreement till now, is probably the worst I've ever seen the public come out in defence of terrorism. And these rallies, in my opinion, should be banned and should never have been allowed to begin with, because Hamas are terrorists, pure and simple.
I totally agree with you, Johnny, but not everybody at those protests is supporting Hamas, are they?
Fine. No, in my opinion, if you go out and you're waving the Palestinian flag and you're wearing their little handkerchief and you're screaming from wherever to the sea, you may as well be in support of Hamas. You're not there for any innocent Palestinian. Most of those Palestinians don't even want to live in Palestine. And you have to remember again, like with the way it's going at the minute, the police are just, before we go off on a tangent, the police aren't fit for purpose at the moment, and they're allowing this to happen, hence why they're being allowed to overreact and start to get violent. And if you ask me, they want violence, because that's all they know. And most of the people who are protesting, in my opinion as well, are not from here and don't have British values, and they're only abusing our system. They take advantage of our system and making us look weak. And our police can't react to that because they're too politicised. And the only way you can get a grip of this, in my opinion, is bring the armed forces in and just put them down the line of the street, curtail them and disband them.
Johnny, thanks for your opinion. Johnny in Belfast there, and this is not just about London, it's about right across the United Kingdom, as Johnny correctly points out. Alan is in Hertfordshire. Alan, what point would you like to make this morning?
Chris. Good morning, Peter. It is Peter, isn't it? Because I get names wrong.
Yes, that's right. No, it's Peter here. Yeah.
Right. I've got 13 grandchildren and 2 great mums, which makes us really old. And I look what's going on, and my wife, Chris, we used to go down London to see the Armistice parade.
Yeah.
And you go down on a Saturday and you stay overnight.
Yeah.
We're going to let a parade go on Saturday when people are travelling down there. You see the old boys with their medals on in the train, prayers. When you see them marching, they're standing up straight. And these are old people, and we're going to allow these people, they will disrupt it. I've got no fault that they won't, and unless we do something about it.
The Palestine, I've just got to make the point, Alan, that the Palestine campaign, one of the campaigning groups, released a statement, I think it was on Friday, saying that they won't disrupt it. Do you believe them?
No.
So are you still going to come, Alan? Are you and your wife still going to come?
Unfortunately, we had to stop because I have a problem with falling over, and it's a bit awkward in crowds because they just walk over you.
Can you at least watch it at home? Can you feel you participate in that way?
We watch it. We have the Union flag up. We've got flags everywhere. We've got stuff on the poster board I made to say what's going on. And we believe in it. And well, we got my dad's medals here because he was in the boat on the Russian convoy, and it's for them. It's not. You know, the council thinks it's racist to have a flag up. They told me so.
But I want to go to Robert in West Yorkshire first of all. Robert, what point would you like to make?
It's reference the cenotaph next weekend.
Yeah, what do you think should happen?
Right. First of all, it should be sacred that we do that for all those who gave their lives for us in the past.
Agreed.
Secondly, I'm ex-military.
Mm-hmm.
I served in the Royal Navy for 24 years to protect the rights of people in this country. That's just the tip of the iceberg. My 4 brothers also served. So between us, one generation, one family, served to protect the people of this country for over 100 years.
Well, thank you for doing that, Robert. And what do you make of what's going on at the moment?
I think it's an absolute disgrace that we have politicians who've got no spine. You have the PM's wife living in number 10 Downing Street, rent-free, when she doesn't pay taxes in this country.
Well, I think she does now. That's changed now, but previously...
Oh, what a shame. She's paying some tax, is she? I pay tax on my military pension.
Yeah.
I'm 74 years old.
Yeah.
And I will pay it until the day I die.
So next weekend, should this protest be banned, do you think, or what do you think should happen?
I know what I'd like to do, and that's I would like to put the special forces in amongst that demonstration and take out the so-called ringleaders. I mean, literally, take them out.
Well, I don't want anybody to die, Robert. I want.
They do.
Well, yeah, some of them do. You're right, Robert. But but that's the difference, isn't it? The difference is in our democracy, we generally, due process is followed.
So, what do you think, being non-military yourself, that the special forces do?
Well, I know what the special forces do, but I'm not sure that people who are on a protest should be taken out. I don't think we can advocate that.
Not talking about the general public in the protest.
I know you're not, Robert. I know you're not.
I'm talking about those who are deliberately going on this protest to cause problems.
Okay, Robert, thanks for your call. I think we're going to respectfully disagree on how to deal with those people. I would like them to be tried and convicted and go to prison. But Robert has a different thought. Let's talk to Eddie in Tamworth now. Eddie, I think we've sorted those problems out now. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter.
Hiya.
The root cause of all these problems is the education system. I went to secondary school in the 70s, and they were all left-wing then. Are you getting me?
Yeah, I'm letting you talk. Go on ahead, Eddie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I went to secondary school in the 70s, and they were all left-wing then, all the teachers. But there was a discipline within the schools.
So now, you think that's missing now?
Well, now, the left-wing woke, the discipline has gone. They're not teaching kids to think. They're brainwashing them. And that's why you've got all these groups springing up, the eco-mob and, the anti-Israeli
Semitic groups and so on. Okay, so you think education is at the root of all this, Eddie?
Oh, yeah, because like I say, they're not teaching them to think, they're brainwashing them.
Are they brainwashing them to be racist, though?
Well, if you call anti-Semitism racism,
it's a form of hatred. It's maybe not racism per se. Well, I suppose it depends if you believe Jewish people are a race, but yes. It's a fair point, Eddie. It's one that I think a lot of people will agree with. Are people taught to hate, do you think, though?
I think the circles they move in tends to lead them in that direction.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts, Eddie. Appreciate that. Thanks also to Paul in County Durham. He says, absolutely ban this protest on the 11th to show respect to our servicemen and women. Thank you to another texter who says, if the government... Oh, no, I've read that one out. Natasha says, Peter, your caller talking about the sunset of the British nation is right. The politicians have become so weak, and the problem of mass non-integration is so great that they will not admit the problem, and therefore it will continue to get worse. I really fear for my children's future. Carol says, I totally agree with your caller Steve's assessment of this country and the causes. If you add lots of water to orange juice, it dilutes it, same as cultures. If ordinary people can see that, why do politicians refuse to? What is the agenda here? Sadly, we're losing our core values in this country. It is not the country I was born into. A lot of people are expressing that sentiment today. There is real real frustration. Christine is in Worcestershire. Christine, you're very welcome to the programme. Good afternoon to you. What point would you like to make?
I'd just like to make the point on the protest. I'm now 78, so I have seen a bit. What I would do is I would get out every soldier in this country, put around the country where the war memorials are, to protect them. That's what I'd do first. Then I would gather all the protesters up, take them to the nearest airport, put them on the best plane they can possibly find, and take them to Israel. And then they can protest there. You wouldn't have to bother then, would you?
I think a lot of people will agree with you, Christine, but also, should people not have the right to protest peacefully in this country, even if we disagree with them? Surely that's a good British value that we have.
A right to protest, yes, but we all know that in that right to protest, there's the bad ones. And that chap he said about special forces, yeah, go for it, because we are so stupid and we just don't do anything with a bit of force because someone might cry. So for once, this is a really important thing to our culture. Just for once, stand up and say, you bad lot, clear off.
But we can tell them to clear off through arresting them and putting them through the judicial system, can't we?
I mean, you know that doesn't really happen. It's just a waste of time to get the soldiers out.
OK, thanks, Christine. Appreciate your thoughts there. Jill is in Cornwall. Jill, what would you like to say? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's very difficult to control myself when I'm talking about this because I feel really strongly about the fact that we've got a bunch of politicians that haven't got the backbones they were born with. We've got a chief of police who really should not be in the job because he doesn't know what to do. And we've got people that are marching. It's not just the Hamas lot or the Gaza lot. There are Just Stop Oil, Greenpeace, they're all legging it in this march. And the people that will be marching on the Remembrance Day are people that have fought and some have died for this country to protect the culture and the people of this country.
They should just give it a rest for a week, shouldn't they? At least a week. They should just say, look, this is the 11th of November. This is Remembrance Day. We have made our point over the past 4 weeks. We can make our point next week. But next weekend, my thought, Jill, and I think it might be yours as well, just leave it for a weekend.
Yes, they need to do that, but as we know, and as it's already being reported, there are people within these marches that are determined to make and break the rules, break the law.
Well, some of them have been doing that. Yeah.
Well, and it's all very well appealing to the nice people within these marches because there are some, but it will be the bad ones that will be the worst thing that can happen to this country. And I am genuinely scared for the people of this country and the way it's going, because it's looking as if we haven't got people strong enough to govern, make decisions, take decisions that maybe we won't like, but they need to be taken. And we're paying for all of this, and there are people sat watching this, and if anything was to happen to any of the chaps or the people marching on Sunday, well, God help us.
I think you're right, Jill. I think you're right. I agree with basically everything you've said there.